How important is it to try and maintain and manage strength and power in season through specific targeted gym work, strength work, or basically any of the stuff that isn't done on the pitch or through our traditional training sessions? We're going to look at that today. Why it's so important, but more importantly, how we can actually do it without taking away from the stuff we're doing on the field, and even complementing that to make sure we are performing at our best deep into the season when oftentimes the gym work can be neglected. Why is it actually important? First of all, can we get enough from the various games or drills we do in training to keep our strength work there, or are there a few missing pieces? Like realistically, we can't maintain the same level of gym work we often would have done over the off season or the winter season, because it can just be 3 or 4 times a week, and that takes away too much from all the pitch stuff we do and the games we're playing and the drills we need to do. But it also gets really hard to just manage overall fatigue and tiredness around how much work you're doing, how much times you're gone from home, how many times you're leaving, packing a bag, showering, fuel and all that, but having the energy to not only recover from it, but adapt to it and get fitter, get stronger, get faster from everything we're doing. But why is it important? So keeping those levels of strength there, you want to manage the weaknesses you can potentially develop. That's left v right imbalances, the front of the body, the back of the body, quads versus hamstrings, everything that way, so that we can reduce the chance of injury happening. We can never completely eliminate. There's no such thing as injury prevention, but we are often trying to reduce the chances of them happening. Now, load management is far more important than anything else for that than strength and stuff, but strength is a big contributor in terms of working against overuse or imbalanced stuff, or just really tired and fatigued muscles or areas of the body. Strength is also a really important contributor to power and speed. So your strength and power qualities will go back a bit if they're not used or maintained. Now, some of the stuff we do on the pitch will help to maintain an awful lot of that. But I know from like looking at the research, but also talking to other really experienced coaches, the upper limit will be a kind of a 12-day rule of thumb for maintenance, that you try at the extreme end. You don't want to go more than kind of 12 days without doing any form of targeted specific strength work. And I will say generally in the gym, there are ways to do it on the pitch, but I really mean like somewhat specific gym work here now, or resistance training or lifting. The 12 days now is the outer limit. Not say you should do it every 12 days, but you'd really be fighting not to let it go longer than 12. Because speed and power are so important for the game winning moments on the field, sprinting past someone, chasing someone down, making that break, making that sidestep, jumping up high to catch a ball. And strength is a big contributor to that. In the majority of cases, some players are just really elastic and the strength doesn't actually go quite as far to contribute to all that. But because strength is so important to all that, we want to do some work that maintains it as much as possible. Now, like I said, doing specific power and speed work will do bits to maintain your strength, but it still work doing the specific targeted strength work. The other bit then, this will be a bit more individual to some players, but strength is obviously like a big contributor to, or lines up alongside keeping muscle mass there. And some players that when they go like do hard blocks train without doing the gymming, they just find it really, really hard to maintain the muscle mass. And because of their style of play, they just want to be a little bit bigger. They might prefer to sit at the higher end of their weight range to just feel a little bit more confident themselves, to cope with the various hits that might come in the field. I know from talking to a couple of players lately, they feel they've dropped about 2 kg, they feel really, really fit, but every hit they take in a game is just taking so much more out of them than it previously would have. They feel it's harder to recover from, and that by trying to put back up another little bit of weight, predominantly from muscle, will help them recover from those hits within games, but also from session to session. And that can just be important for maintaining that style of play. If you're the big powerful player, or you're coaching one of the big powerful players that just relies on having a little bit more muscle mass there, then you obviously need to do targeted strength work to try and keep that where it is, so that you can use it in games, and when you're doing all the extra eating, it's contributing to maintain muscle mass, not just general bulk or size, whatever it is they're trying to keep on there. So that's why it's important. And we're going to look now over the course of this podcast and video, see what are some of the common mistakes that players make and why they are issues and ways we can negate them. But we'll also look then at the key principles of how you can try and keep strength up in season as much as possible in as feasible a way as you can, through gym sessions, through pitch work, and how you can be a little bit flexible around different situations, and then just recapping it all so that you have some decent takeaways from this at the end. So we look first at some of the common mistakes made in practice around gym stuff. So think like, I remember, I think it was the was a TV station called Setanta Sports, and they used to show a lot of games. They used to show school rugby matches. They might show some, was it the Celtic League, whatever like the URC was called. They used to show some of them games, but they'd also show particularly Saturday night National Football League matches. And I remember like they'd always nearly have the Dubs first league game of the year, and you can remember like Shane Ryan, Conal Keeney coming out for the first league game, absolutely busting out of the jerseys. They just had massive shoulders, chest, arms. It was so clear they'd spent a lot of time in the gym over the winter. They mightn't have looked as fast or as quick or as sharp as they did the previous, probably August when they got knocked out, but they just looked really big and strong. Maybe not as slick like skills wise. And then like they probably realised, oh, I'm a little bit slow, I'm a little bit sluggish here. They cut the gym work way back. By the time you see them play again in August, they're way smaller, not way smaller, but they're a good bit smaller, leaner. If they were wearing the same jerseys, they would look a lot looser. They probably just got tighter jerseys come summertime, and they buzzed around a lot quicker. We don't see as much of that now, where players come out way bigger in January, February, and are way lighter in August, September. There's probably more of a balance. You do a bit more conditioning and speed work in the wintertime, and you try and maintain some bit of strength work in the summertime or in season, and you just turn up or down the dials on those based on what the specific priorities are at that stage of the season, but you should be trying to roll them both along together as much as possible. It was really hard to gym in season because there was just a lot of pitch sessions. Like that's the time Dublin were probably doing their double days on Tuesday and Thursday, and then probably a longer training session Saturday. Where you fit in gym work alongside that is probably going to be really difficult to do. And the same for a lot of like club teams, they were the same. Plus, gym culture in general wasn't as big. Like if you're thinking back to 2007 or 2010, 2012, not as many people went to gym, not as many people had gym memberships. Young people, like you go to any gym now, you'll see some amount of like 16 to 20 year olds. That was not remotely the case there. If you said you were going to the gym, people give you funny looks. That's not the case now. So it's easier to go to the gym. It's more common. Plus people tend to have a better idea of what they're doing, as opposed to just the dropping it completely in season. There was the issue then, like when players did gym in the winter, they did absolutely nothing else. Like I said already, players will do some form of conditioning speed work. Like that was just completely dropped. You got knocked out of championship in September, October. You did nothing for a month and you said, I better start gymming. You did like usually a load of upper body and some bits of squats maybe. There was no real hamstring work around done then. Your overall energy expenditure was down because you weren't training as much, so you're naturally just going to put on a bit of weight. People attribute it to all the gym work, but it's just because you weren't doing as much activity in general. Because most of the work was upper body, shoulders, chest, back work was often neglected, so you got really big in the upper body. You came back out in the pitch then, have done no condition, no speed work, and gotten heavier. Were unfitter, were slower, blamed it all on the gym work, so the gym work was often cut. Thankfully, we now know that both can coexist quite well as long as there's a little bit of planning around how it's all done, and that's what we look at today. Another common mistake then is not adapting the gym work around the match day, but also the important sessions within the week. I was acting as a nutritionist with a team one time, and I was in the, I'm not going to say who or what club or what county or anything like that, but I was in the WhatsApp group, and S&C would have asked the players to post evidence of their gym session. So one lad got on the other boys in the team to take a picture of him doing a squat, and he was doing like 130 kg squat, like, you know, decent lifting. But then they were out like doing a really heavy pitch session the following night, and it's so much fatiguing work loaded onto body in a short space of time. If you're going out and doing your really heavy strength work Monday, and traditionally if you train Tuesday is like the big session of the week. It's when you load, or you would anyway, your big speed work, a lot of your small sided games, some of the longer, more extensive conditioning. It's just an awful lot of volume and work in one night. And if you're doing that after heavy squats and all the accessory work that goes with that the night before, it's just so tiring. It's so tiring come Wednesday because you've loaded those 2 days together after possibly a match or training Sunday morning. But also, because Tuesday's like the big night in the week where you want to go really well, coming into that fatigued from Monday and heavy lifting means you're just a bit blunted. You're not at the optimal level of firing or ploughing into stuff that you want to on Tuesday night because you're carrying that fatigue from the strength work Monday night. So that's why you want to look at ways of trying to separate or just have that bit of recovery or adaptation time between the big sessions or the heavier work where you do that in the week, and that means balancing the strength work, the speed work, the power work, and your specific hurling or football stuff that you're doing. Where the gym session comes needs to be somewhat adaptable around various bits in the schedule. Matches, because fixtures fall different stages in the week. It's not like you're a Premier League soccer team, you're always going to be playing at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Things move around, so you obviously have to be prepared to move around your sessions with that. And the main strength or the main gym work needs to be thought of when you're adapting bits over the course of your week, or ideally looking at your month in advance where bits falls. Here's our main hurling, here's our football, here's our main pitch sessions around that. Where do we dot in our bits of strength work so that it's complementing and supporting whatever we're doing on the pitch and playing our matches. And where that gym session falls in the week needs to be fairly adaptable, and there's a few things that'll contribute to where you should place it. Because there are a few options, and we'll discuss those as we go on to see what's the best for you at the specific stages of the week. So whether you're the coach planning out where the gym goes, or you're a player trying to see there are no scheduled squad gym sessions, where can you slot it in. The other mistake then we'll touch on is just around, not everyone can do the same gym sessions over the course of particularly the in-season period. Like in the off-season, you're looking at tailoring bits a bit anyway around what someone's specific needs are. Some players might need to put on a little bit of weight. Some are just looking to get a bit stronger, some a bit more explosive, some a combination of it all. Whereas some are just getting consistent strength sessions in because it might not be something they've done regularly before. Whereas there's a few other factors that come into play over the winter time, and that's based on like the different demands of what they play. So for example, like goalkeepers, both hurling and football, based on the demands of their sport, they don't need remotely near the same levels like aerobic conditioning. They often will get more out of doing specific strength work. It'll make their kick out or puck out longer, it'll make them a little bit more powerful, they might be more explosive when it comes to diving. They just don't need the same level of repeatability of actions on the pitch that a lot of outfield players have, so they can actually do more obviously tailored specific skill work like what goalies do, but also at the gym work they can put more of an emphasis on that just to be more powerful without the same levels of repeatability there. Also, you'll think of like impact players, they have become, I know Kevin McManaman kind of was the first big one to really make the role his own, but say players who just know they're probably only going to play 20 minutes so they can go really, really hard for those 20 minutes, they're often like, they don't have the same demands, particularly from games, to recover from, so they can put more of an emphasis on just putting their outputs a little bit higher because they don't need the condition levels that are required. And that might be an older player you have, or someone who has to work through specific injuries. They just might not be able to cope with the specific demands of normal training, but they can look to maximise other bits like just their overall force output or power output, or just keep on a little bit of muscle mass. Also, based on where games fall, like some subs just might not get the same level of playing time, they can look to squeeze in extra gym sessions there just to keep their overall work up, or use it as opportunities like, I'm not getting much game time, but particularly younger players who just don't get the same game time, 18, 19, 20, they're not breaking into the team. Sometimes it's because of a lack of physicality or size or strength. Well, if you don't play in this game, it is obviously, once you manage the time demands or the amount of time you're spending in, not in contact sessions, but in doing sessions even yourself, that can be a good time to squeeze in a couple of extra strength or hypertrophy sessions to try close the gap to where you need to be physically. And there obviously can be other factors at play there. Maybe it's not just size, or the same for players who are coming back from injury. You go to a match, the lads are playing, you can't play, but you might be able to get in and get a bit of an extra bit of your rehab or strength session, so you're further along that route to getting back playing. I'm going to break this next bit down in two separate sections. So the first one is just, what are the key governing principles for your in-season S&C? So the main factors that should guide your decision making. So we've 1, 2, 3, 4 laid out here, and then we look at what are the options around squeezing them in. So I've kind of two main ones you put in, particularly when it comes to combining your pitch stuff with your strength work. So there's two ways you can do it, and what specific exercises, loading patterns, or just other factors need to be included there. So I still think this is the most important thing to consider, is look across your week or across your month for opportunities where you can squeeze in your gym session or your strength session. That's, first of all, ideally if you're the manager or the coach looking at, okay, here's my next week, here are where there are 3 matches slotted in, either Championship League or practice. where the main training sessions are fitting around that, because they are your key things to contribute to play better in matches. And then you look to slot into gym sessions. So I would say the first one is try and find a spot where you have 2 nights off before training. Most teams tend to train on a Tuesday night. So if you train on a Tuesday night, you most likely have Monday off. And if your last session was Saturday, then the best time to gym is Sunday. You're still leaving Monday free as a full recovery day. So when you go into Tuesday night, that's your main session where you're getting the majority of your big loading work in. And you're also high quality playing your sport. You've recovery from both gym and from other pitch work the day before. If you're a little bit tired from Saturday's session going into Sunday's gym, so be it. It's not a priority for that stage of the season, so you can cope with a little bit of fatigue, but you want to be as fresh as possible going into Tuesday night. And obviously it's just look at where there are other opportunities then in the week based on where you train. So for example, if you train Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, Wednesday might be the best time to get in your gym session. There are obvious little bits there then if you're consistently doing it on Wednesday and you have a match Friday evening or Saturday, then you might need to look at, well, there are ways you can just tailor that back, but sometimes you need to be conscious of little bits like that either. If you train Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, then Monday's your best time to get your gym session in there. We'll just briefly look at double sessions there now. I'm a fan of these. If you can, the big thing with these is just access to the gym and the size of your gym compared to the size of your panel. So option A is you do your pitch session, then you slightly shorten it based on what you normally do. So if you normally do like 75 minutes of a pitch session, you might pull it back to 55 or 60, then go into the gym and do 20 to 30 minutes there of just pure strength work straight after the pitch. And we'll touch on the various factors to consider around that once we've gone a bit further. And then the other option is start in the gym, do again maybe 20, 25 minutes, then go out and do an hour-ish of a pitch session straight after. And we'll look at that later on as well. The next stream in bits now, we're going to look at some like, when it comes to designing gym sessions within the season, what are the factors? So this is where we start looking at specific exercises, but also the loading around them and what governs your decision making around that. One of the big things here is that intensity is more important than volume. In the off season, it is important to build up a certain amount of volume that will lead to both muscle mass, strength, and just general work capacity, tissue adaptation. That's what's going to drive a lot of that. But to maintain at volume isn't remotely as important as intensity. So you don't need to do the classic 3 sets of 6 to 10 reps. This will, particularly in the lower body, just leave you generally tired, and it'll be difficult to hit the same weight as you previously did for that amount of reps. So that's why try and hit the heavier weights you would have hit, particularly towards the end of your off season, but for less volume. So instead of, say, trap bar deadlift, you were doing 3 sets of 5 at 150 kg, now you might do 2 sets of 4. So it's, instead of 15 total reps, it's 8 total reps, but you're hitting that intensity that you wanted to, so it will hold on to the majority of strength you have there. It might be a little harder to maintain little bits of muscle mass, but that's obviously going to be factored around how much food you're eating, protein consumed, all like that. Other little bits then around working on it to keep a little bit of volume is, you can do some build-up sets for a little bit of volume. So if you're working up to a set of 4 or 5 at 150 kg, you might just do a few extra warm-up sets along the way up, hit your top set and stop. That's your main thing done. Go do some assistance work, single leg work, whatever like that. Or another one, I think you need to be a little bit more experienced for this one, but it's something I like doing is work up. Say I'm going to work up in this session to a heavy set of 3 or 5 based on the stage of the season, how you're feeling, whatever. So I'm going to work up to 5. I know in the off season I was doing 3 sets of 5 I was doing 3 sets of 3 at 170 kg. I'm going to work up again to a heavy set of 3 just for 1 set of 3. See what's there, leave 1 rep in the tank. So I'm safe hitting it, but you know, if I did one more, I could lose technique. So I might get up to 160, 165 kg for 1 set of 3. It's very close to what I was hitting in the winter for those sets of 3. Instead of stopping there and doing no extra work, because it's just building up to that one set of 3, I'm going to drop off. So 165, I'll drop 10 to 15%. So 10% of that would be 16 kg, so 15. I might strip off 20, 25 kg and do maybe do 2 sets of 5 there. It's a much safer way of getting in a bit of volume, so that it just helps hold on to just the general work capacity, but also that will help your hypertrophy. You know, those just slightly, like 5 reps isn't that high, but still slightly higher reps. Second governing principle then would be like unilateral work is much less fatiguing than bilateral work. So your front squats, your back squats, your trap bar deadlifts, your normal, if you can do conventional or sumo deadlifts, stuff like that, they're also really good. They're all really good for developing strength, bits of hypertrophy once you load them right, all like that. And you can still include them as your main exercises, but I'd be very conscious of just doing one of those in a session. Like in a session you go in and do, say, a set of front squat, or like 3 sets of 5 or 4 sets of 6 if you're pushing volume of front squats. Do similar for RDLs or sumo deadlifts, and it's a lot of work in. There's no way you can get the same level of work in those bilateral exercises in season. It's just too much work, it's too much load in your essential nervous system. You can go and do one of them, just like I mentioned, use that same previous set and rep scheme I used there, build up to one, say if you hit a 3 or 5, or do like your half reps but same intensity, and then get all your assistance work from unilateral or single leg stuff. So your split squats, your Bulgarian squats, the Bulgarian squats can be loaded quite heavily, but your single leg RDLs, some split hinges, just stuff where you're getting a good stimulus, a good lift in without necessarily, you just can't lift as much weight because you're not able to in those specific exercises, so you're trying to target those. Another really good way of getting in volume here is the use of machines. Leg extensions, leg curls, like your muscle will be sore when you're doing it. It might be a little, you might have some DOMs if you've never done it before, but it's a much less fatiguing way of loading. It doesn't have a remotely near the same impact on your central nervous system. And even like if a leg press, you could do some single leg press. You just can't, like, it's very unlikely you're doing half the weight for single leg press as you are for double leg press, like half of what you would have done double. So again, it's a really good stimulus for the legs. It's good to look at those imbalances anyway, but you're unlikely to just be as wrecked after it. I mean, like, centrally, as opposed to just the muscles. Last point into this will be, more upper body work is generally fairly okay for volume. Like if you'd like just going in and doing a 40 to 50 minute gym session, you do all your leg stuff and it's done. Like, could be done 20, you could have a lot of your lower body stuff done 20 minutes now when you pull back the lot of sets of heavy loading. You don't need the same level of recovery there. The single leg stuff, you can nearly superset that, or superset some lower body stuff with upper body stuff, because it's just not as hard to recover from. But you can put in a bit more hypertrophy style stuff, your 3 sets of 8 or 3 sets of 10, just to bulk out your session, get a bit more work in. You have an appetite for doing work in the gym, grand. You'll be a bit sore muscular wise, so be it, but it won't lead to the same levels of like overall central fatigue. But at the same time, be reasonable. Don't go in and hammer yourself with upper body saying, oh, it won't take as much out of me. It does still have a recovery cost, and if you play a match on Sunday and you are training Tuesday, like sometimes you might go and do a bit of recovery and say, oh, I'm getting a little bit excited, I had caffeine before, and you do a big upper body session. It is taken from your ability to recover for the match or for the training you're about to do the following night. So I would keep stuff like that in mind. It's no harm to do bits of upper body. You want to keep on that bit of muscle mass, like something we touched on earlier, but I would just be conscious of don't let it take away from the recovery, but also don't completely neglect it. You can get a bit work in if you're a bit tired, so be it. Just don't have it hitting overall what you do. As we jump into the next bit now, where we're looking to double up stuff, it is something that's stated a bit is like microdosing. You might not get the same 2 or 3 really big, good quality gym sessions in across the week, but you can look at ways of fitting in pockets of 10 to 15 minutes over the course, keeping the intensity high, and some smart exercise selection can be really helpful here. I've said already that the best thing to do is find a window in the week as to where you can fit in your strength session. Ideally, that's the first day in a 2-day break between training or matches. So again, if you've trained Saturday and then you're out again Tuesday, you try and do your gym Sunday, so Monday's off. Sometimes that doesn't work out. Run of games, run of fixtures, things go all over the place. You can only train 3 times a week. You know, you don't have the option to go somewhere 4 days a week or 5 days a week, but you have maybe longer windows. And this is where I like the double up sessions. You combine pitch and gym, and there's 2 ways to look at it. So the first one, it would realistically be my preference. I think you get better quality of both, but that's your post-session lift. So where you do your pitch session, like I said, cut it back maybe 10-15 minutes and do 20 to 30 in the gym afterwards. Generally you want to do this further away from matches. So if you have a match Sunday, you could do it the previous Sunday, possibly Tuesday evening, but I don't know, it is quite fatiguing depending on how you manage it. It will be used a lot by basketball and NBA players, and I have a video on the YouTube side just looking at how the NBA players use this a lot. You can see it a lot in baseball as well. They all have really, really class gyms or weight rooms in their stadia, so as soon as they're finished playing, straight into the gym. The key here is to focus on strength as opposed to power. Ideally for power work, you want to do it quite early in the session just to keep that pop or explosiveness there. If you've done an hour on the pitch, there's a good chance you've just kind of worn that bit down out yourself. Now you can do some change of direction, acceleration stuff, agility stuff at the start of your session to tick that box, we'll say, and then do all your strength stuff then once you do go into the gym. It can be a mixture of lower upper body. Like if you really want to load stuff, you could do, say, Sunday morning, do your pitch, do all your lower body stuff, 20 to 25 minutes of it, then go out Monday and do your upper body, take Tuesday off and train Wednesday. That would be a good way of being as recovered as possible while getting in a little bit more volume. But otherwise, mixture of lower and upper body in this session. Where possible, and like this is logistically dependent on access to a gym, proximity of that gym to the pitch. If it's a tiny gym and if you've squad of 35 players, it's unlikely to work. You can look at split sessions there, half players pitch, half players gym, and you swap over. The pros and cons of that can work quite well. But if possible, I do like to give players options. Like split your exercise up into categories, so have like a lower body squatty type, a lower body hingy type, a lower body split squatty or unilateral squatty, lower body unilateral hingy. So for example, lower body squatty, a trap bar or a squat, and they can pick themselves front or back based on what you've been doing all season up to that. You know, an RDL or a split hinge, and then your unilateral, a split squat or a Bulgarian squat or a single leg press or a leg extension, again, what you have. You can, to manage time and groupings and all, you can pair a lower body with an upper body, so you might be doing your split squat and you could do that with a one arm half kneeling press, so you can just have a couple of dumbbells left there, choice for all the players based on what they're using. You don't need any kind of warm up for this. They've just done an hour on the pitch. They're plenty warm, they're plenty loosened out. Get in, have the session up on the board, have a couple of little stations dotted out. I don't like full on circuits for stuff like this. I just think you just end up too tired, and by the time, say if you've 8 stations, by the time you get to the 7th or 8th exercise, you're just so tired, you're getting very little from it. There are ways to mix and match. I think like triple sets or giant sets, you can get more purposeful work in that way. So for example, a triple set would be, you might have your classic RDL, a single arm press, and something that's like really low fatigue, like a pale off press or a plank or something that just, it fills a bit of time, it gets a little bit of work in, but doesn't really tire you out. So when you get back around to the RDL, you've had a bit of recovery from the last set of it, but you're not overall fatigued from the other 2 exercises. That's going to massively impact your performance in it. Just for those types of things, make sure everyone starts on like the main exercise, and if it means one lad is doing it or one girl is doing it and 2 others are waiting, so be it. By the time you get into it, they're all moving then. So setting up maybe 3 triple sets around with a core lift or something in all of them, and assisting stuff beside it, bit of core stuff, bit of single leg work, bit of upper body pushing and pulling, like you're ticking all the boxes there. And is quite manageable around like limited equipment, a few bands, a couple of bars or trap bars, and you can get an awful lot in there just by being smart in your session design. And like if you've like 3 different templates to use and rotate through the 3 of those, the players will know them fairly quick anyway. And it might be worth posting to the WhatsApp group or whatever before and say, here's the pitch session if you do that, here's the gym session for afterwards, know your little pods, get into the exercises, have a fair idea what weight you're lifting and work with players similar weights to you, boom, away you go. The other option then for your double sessions is to do some form of lifting prior to going on the pitch. Generally this will work better because you have to include a little bit of a warm up here. So whether that's you as a coach led, or if you were going up and doing this on your own as a player beforehand, you need to do some little bit of movement prep there beforehand. I would focus more on like power based exercise or priming style exercises. They will have a knock on benefit to maintain strength as well. Plus earlier in the session is the best time to get power stuff in there. So some jumps and some loaded jumps. You could make some complexes here where you maybe work through 4 exercises. One is really explosive and you progress on towards the end is more strength focused, and they're kind of in the middle there in the middle. 2 working sets are probably enough. Like you really don't want to fatigue yourself fully because the pitch is still the main session. You can pair some isometric exercise with some explosive or jump-based movements here. So you might do, like, if you can set up some form of isometric pull, let it be like a really heavy trap bar. They're often a little bit too low, so you have to prop them up. Or like if you can set up a bar against a rack, pull against that for 5 seconds, straight into a couple of like loaded jumps or box jumps. A couple of throws work really well here, and a little bit of core stuff. It'll stimulate your central nervous system, and a bit of explosive stuff works really well. Some bounds, some extra contacts you can do, like your pogos around that way. This will obviously serve, if you're doing this as a full squad session, as your warm-up for everyone. Like, you need to do minimal warm-up, typical stuff. Once you do go onto the pitch, you can just kind of get into your football or your hurling. You can do this reasonably close to a game. Like your typical strength work, you'd nearly want to keep like 5 days out from match, where you can do this a little bit closer. You just do need to be quite careful with volume, and obviously that is dependent on the players being somewhat experienced. If you're beginners and you're like, match Saturday, we might go up and do a couple of power exercises Thursday even before training. If they're not used to it, that is just going to completely flatten them. They might not be overly sore, but it will really take the ping or the explosiveness out of it. And you need to be managed the total volume there if you're doing gym stuff and pitch stuff. Like I would put a time limit of 60 minutes total, absolute max there, of gym and pitch combined a few days before a match. And that's for experienced players. If you're inexperienced, I would be very wary of putting it in, unless it's complete body weight. You're doing like very, very, very low volumes, like good warm up and 10 minutes worth of stuff. Best exercise here: med ball throws, box jumps, split squat, holds, so it's the isometric, some pogos, that like that, and mix and match those kind of as you want. Like, just see, I'm hitting a few different categories here. Am I feeling nice and like explosive and pingy afterwards? I got maybe one decent lift in, and you know, like work up to a heavy bench press here. It can be good to stimulate your nervous system as well before you go on the pitch. One thing I feel is important to include here is that if you're doing like some really good speed and power work on the pitch, that will have huge benefits to maintaining strength. Like there's a big strength contribution to an awful lot of speed stuff. So if you're regularly sprinting and jumping out on the pitch, which you most definitely should be, it is so, like if you did no strength work but did all your speed and power stuff, you would still get really good strength benefits, and it will help hold on to everything. I would still always prioritise sprinting, jumping, bounding, hopping ahead of typical strength work. That's not to say I would pick one over the other, but if I really had to, in some form of hypothetical situation, I would. But when working together, that's obviously better than both. Your true sprints, so like all out sprint work, really long recovery, hops or hop series, bounds, sleds, hills, like they all have big impacts on strength and will help to maintain stuff. And then these can be complemented with like some isometrics or some band work at the end of the session to try hold on to as much strength as possible, particularly at really busy stages of the season where you can feed them in. So I'll just give a little sample here of something that I find quite useful. It's like, do your traditional warm-up. I prefer to do some skills for 8 to 10 minutes, then into your like classic movement prep. Throw in all your extensive plyos here, or your lighter medium tier as Matt Watson calls them, but just 3 to 4 different variations of pogos: forward, sideways, split stance, alternating stance, some single leg, some double leg. Then into 2 to 3 sets of like 20 to 25 meter bounds, and nice and aggressive on those, particularly on like once you get to the third set. And then 3 sets of a little complex here. So you're going to start with a standing triple jump. So that's where you start in 2 feet, then go right leg, left leg, land. I like to put out cones at 1 meter intervals, get a little bit of competition going there, see who gets around the 8 to 9 meter mark. So you do one of those, so a triple jump, into a 10 meter sled pull with about 20 kg. Heavier players can go a bit heavier, lighter players than 80 kg can go a bit lighter. Into a 20 meter sprint and full recovery, and do maybe 3 rounds of that. That's going to have huge benefits to speed, power, and an awful lot for strength maintenance / development. Do the rest of your like main sport of your session, whatever you're doing for the day, and then at the end you can put in some, say, you can do Nordics. I don't. I prefer like a long lever bridge, so like your single leg glute bridge, but with less of a bend in the knee, so it's not a straight knee, but it's much longer, for maybe 30-ish seconds. And a lunge or a split squat hold, again 30-ish seconds each side. And all that together over the course of a session will have a massive benefit to holding on to. You're not going to use strength benefits, maybe a few from the speed and power stuff, but they'll really help to hold on to what strength you have built up as part of your sports session, so you have more time then to go and recover. So if that's your Tuesday, you're not as under pressure to feel, oh, I need to get to the gym Wednesday to keep onto my strength, to go into Thursday or Friday session fatigued. You're that bit fresher going into those next sessions, which are obviously far more important as you get into the real championship parts of the season. To summarise all we've gone over then, first point I made was maintaining strength is really important, and that's like for injury reduction, not prevention, but just to keep injuries at bay based on the imbalances, the muscle mass that you use, to keep levels of speed and power as high as possible. Strength is really important for all of that. The microdosing, trying to keep little bits of strength work in as many of your warm-ups as possible, and that can be like, strength is coordination, they both interlink a lot with each other. So even including some of your typical strength-based movements, split squats, single leg RDLs, split hinges, all like that, including those as part of your warm-up, just as general movements, they help ingrain those movement patterns. So then if you do have a longer than a week layoff from the gym, you do still have the levels of the movement patterns there. So when you do go in and load it, you can still perform it just with adding load. It's not a case of I have to, the coordination just feels off. How do I hinge again? Whereas if you keep incorporating that in all your warm-ups, then it's easier to maintain that movement with load once you're doing it without load. The speed and power work you do on the pitch will be really beneficial in holding on to levels of strength. Like, I would even go to the point of, if you just did a longer block of plyometric and power-based stuff, I think there would be strength carryover elements there. It would have to be quite specifically designed for a 6 to 8 week block. I think you need someone far smarter than me to design out what that specifically looks like, but there are potentials of that happening, so it does show that there are carryover benefits in both directions. The key around doing your strength work is to find the opportunities in the week where it'll fit, and that's, if you are the manager or the coach, where can you fit in squad sessions or recommend your players do their strength work if they do it in their own time, and obviously allow degrees of flexibility here. Like, if you train Saturday, Tuesday, and you say players get it in Sunday, but some people just have family stuff on Sunday, then okay, I'd like if you got it in Monday, but please do it Monday morning, use Monday lunchtime as the cut-off. Monday evening, it's just the fatigue is likely to still be there the following evening. It's less likely to be there if you get it in Monday morning. You have all your meals that day to try and help recover from it on all of Tuesday. You're not going to say caffeinate before, or if you're used to caffeinating before a Monday evening session, but that session is the morning and you caffeinate before it's grand, that's out your system, you get a good night's sleep Monday, you're ready to train Tuesday. You can be tired going into a gym session, so be it. If you're tired from a game a day or two before, training sessions the night before, it is not the priority, your gym work. It's important to get it in and keep it maintained, but not to make massive strides. That's what periods in the off season were for, or targeted blocks maybe during breaks in the season. But you want to try and avoid the opposite. You don't want your gym sessions carrying over fatigue into your main pitch sessions or into matches. It's defeating the purpose of what a lot of the strength stuff is for. I'd prioritise intensity over volume, so try and hit the heavier weights and pull back the overall amount of sets and or reps you're doing. Don't pull everything absolutely back. But if you're used to doing 3 sets of 8 at a certain weight, I wouldn't still do 3 sets of 8 at a lighter weight. I'd push the heavier weight and pull back either 1 set of 8 or 2 sets of 6 or whatever you feel you're able to hit, while still trying to get as close to those main weights as before within reason. And if you're the manager, listen, give players a choice around exercises and when they complete the sessions, but still look to hold them accountable. You can, give a few options. Here are 3 sessions you can choose from on Sunday mornings, Sunday evenings, Monday evenings. Pick which one you want to do. I don't expect it thrown in a WhatsApp group, but when I ask you, I want a quick answer around which one it was, so I know you've done it. I want to see a little bit of pushing or at least maintenance around these key lifts. You can fill in the pieces around them yourself based on what it is you like to do. If you've like 20-25 minutes worth of main stuff and they like just getting a pump for another 25 minutes, if it keeps them happy, leave them at it. If you want to get on a bike afterwards and do some extra top-up conditioning, leave them at it. It's about working with players, or you as a player yourself. You've identified a few weaknesses. Target the weeknesses. Once they don't impact your pitch work, within reason, and you're still getting in some of the key lifts. At times it works. There are no perfect ways to do all this. There's a few general guiding principles you try and stick as closely to as possible to within reason, and still making it sure it fits within your schedule, around your fixtures, around the facilities you have access to based on the numbers you're training or working alongside, or what your manager is willing to accommodate, or you have the buy-in from players to actually implement. If you want further resource on this, I'll drop a couple of the in-season strength guides below. I have a new in-season speed plan you can purchase. I'll drop that link below as well. It's way more popular than I expected it to be. Teams are finding it very effective. I had a few trial it for a few weeks, and they're saying it's quite simple to implement and straightforward, and there's videos for everything, so have a look at that if interested in it. If you have any specific questions around that, and let me know, particularly coming to in-season, happy to address a few bits. We're going to touch on how to train and manage around injuries over the next couple of weeks. We're looking at a guide to carb loading and nutrition around training games, particularly as teams are about to hit championship over the next little while, and we're in the process of lining up a few guests for the podcast too.